guys, it's me, Courtney, and welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the new Juvia's Place I Am Magic foundation, as well as their concealers. So when they came out with the complexion products, they came out with foundation, concealers. Now they have powders, which I need to put my order in. I kind of want to try the powders out, but I just want to give kudos. One, because they have an amazing shade range. The price isn't crazy, and the product is pretty good, which we'll get into. All right, so I wanted to zoom you guys in so you can really get up close to my pores and see what the foundation does. I'm gonna start off today with my Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer. I've been trying this foundation out for about a week now, and honestly, any primer you have will work just the same with it. I don't really see a huge difference in like the performance of it, but I always like to use a primer to create sort of that barrier on my skin. So this is what the actual foundation looks like. So it is $20, you get 1 ounce, which is like your standard. It comes in 42 shades. I got 2 of them, so I got Punta Cana in 435, as well as Nairobi in 410. This is 435. This one is Nairobi. This color is a little bit deeper in tone. The undertones, either one will work for my skin tone. And another thing I find is I can also mix the two and get a pretty decent shade. Today, I think I'm just gonna go in with Punta Cana. This one is a little bit lighter than I like my foundation, but it is a pretty good match as far as my actual skin tone. The one thing I will say, as you can see, it's like a little squeeze tube. I do wish it was a pump, just because I kind of gauge how much product I need based on like pumpage. This is what I'm gonna start with, and I'm gonna start on this side of my face, and I'm gonna use a sponge so you guys can see what that looks like. All right, so no foundation and with foundation. It is a pretty good coverage. I do feel like because it's more of like a moussey texture, it does spread really nicely. You really don't need a lot to get like this much coverage. Now we're gonna go on the other side with it. So you got your brush side and your sponge side. I do think that this is one of those foundations where you can go in with a soft bristle brush first and then go back over it with the sponge and sort of tap everything out. I actually like that application a little bit better than just a sponge or just a brush. So I do feel like you can build this foundation to what coverage you'd like. You would just have to basically be mindful of how much product you're using. Again, because it's in like this squeeze tube, it's easy to pump out more than you need, if that makes sense. It's like a slight tacky feel, not really like sticky to the touch necessarily, but it is a little bit tacky. I find that with this foundation, I can go either setting it or not setting it, and it still lasts about the same amount of time. I get the same oils peeking through at the end of the day kind of thing. But yeah, initial thoughts, I love the way that my actual skin looks. All right, so now we're gonna go in with the I Am Magic concealer. This is gonna be $14. It is 0.34 ounces. So it's along the lines of having about the same amount as like your Tarte Shape Tape. So you do get a lot of concealer. It does come in 24 shades. I got the shade 13. Now what I will say about this shade is I do wish it was a little bit more warm in tone. It does have a little bit of an olivey neutral kind of undertone, and I think the next shade that they had, the J14, I feel like that shade would have been perfect for me, but this one's still workable. I actually really love the consistency of it. I feel like it's like a very light concealer. It's still very full coverage, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't feel like thick, and it almost reminds me more so of the Too Faced Born This Way concealer, and that one I'm a fan of. All right, so this is what the skin is looking like, just with a light dusting of powder. I find that with this concealer, just doing a light little tap is good enough, and that's why I say use a little bit of powder, a little bit of concealer, and I get less creasing. And as you can see, like everything looks blurred and smooth and not textured. Everything looks really good. So I'm gonna go ahead, finish the rest of my makeup, come back, and then we'll have a little chat. This is the face that we're gonna be going with today. So I'm taking a look at everything. Everything looks fairly good. Everything looks blurred out. Everything feels nice and lightweight and comfy. Nothing's like clinging to any dry patches. I don't feel like insecure about anything on my skin. Like, I think this is a pretty good makeup day. So the foundation is supposed to be a velvety matte foundation. I didn't find any claims online as far as like the longevity of it or anything like that. So it is a velvet matte. I do agree with that. It's like a soft matte. Like I said before, it was a little tacky. I did lightly set it with the Fenty powder in Honey, and I didn't set it to the point that it actually sucked up any oils or anything. I feel like the initial application on every time that I've tried this pretty much looks awesome. Everything goes on really smooth. I didn't have any trouble like with patchiness with any of my products. All right, so right now it is 12:21. I'm gonna try to give this a 6 to 8 hour wear test. That being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next clip, which will be like 6 to 8 hours from now. All right guys, I am back, and this is what my face is looking like. It is now 6:05, so we're like 20 minutes shy of the 6 hour mark, and as you can see, my oils are already pretty prominent. So that's one thing that I have noticed with this foundation. This is one of those foundations that for me really only lasts about 3 to 4 hours before it starts getting really oily, really melty. Now I will say this as well, every time that I've worn this foundation, this is the end of the day look, whether it was 6 hours, 8 hours, pretty much after the 4 hour mark, the oils peek through in a major way. And now that's regardless of the primer that I use, whether I set it, whether I don't set it. This foundation on my skin just gets oily. That being said, I do feel like it is a tiny bit heavy, and I feel like if you're somebody that usually likes a really lightweight foundation, something that you can barely feel, this is going to be one of those things that once the oils start coming through, you're definitely going to feel it. I feel like even now with the oils coming through, my pores here don't look horrible. A lot of times with different foundations, like as soon as the foundation starts breaking down and getting a little bit oily, my pores start showing. Whereas with this, I feel like it's still pretty covered. Like I think on this side, like right here specifically and right here, you can see a little bit of my pores, but for the most part it's still blurred out. Because this is only a 4 hour foundation, I feel like this is something that you're gonna have to take your setting powder with you, especially if you have oily skin. Regardless of the oils, to me it still looks good. I recently did a review on the Smith & Co foundation, and it's very reminiscent of that one. Both foundations still look good after you powder them, but it does take the Smith & Co foundation more time to get oily, whereas this one gets oily a little quicker, but this one is still very blurring. I'm gonna take my Fenty powder. This is the one that I lightly set with today, and I'm gonna go over the oily parts of my face, but I'm gonna go over it with the banana powder like I did under my eyes so that it'll match. Alright, so we are all touched up, and as you can see, everything is still very blurred. Everything looks pretty much good as new. I won't say like exactly good as new, but it looks pretty much good as new. Everything is still blurred out. Even with the powder on top, I don't feel like it makes it any heavier than it was with my oils peeking through. But again, if you're somebody who is used to something that you can't feel, I don't think this is necessarily that. Now, one thing that I will say is because I tend to have wrinkles under my eyes, sometimes I get creasing regardless of what I do. I try to stay with concealers that keep it as smooth as it can keep it. Sometimes I'll have really good days where I don't crease at all, and then the days that I do crease using those type of concealers, it still doesn't look as bad as if I use like a dry concealer or a really creasy concealer. It's just a lot going on down there. What I will say, as far as if I would actually repurchase this foundation, while I do enjoy this foundation, I love the look that it gives, I feel like I do have other foundations that I like more. There's certain foundations I know I'll always repurchase, i.e. the Becca foundation, the Ultimate Coverage, i.e. Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk. Like those will stay in my constant repertoire and rotation, whereas something like this is really nice to try. It's only $20, not bad at all, has an awesome shade range. But once I use these two, I can't say 100% that I would buy another one. All right guys, that about does it for me. Hopefully this video was helpful and informative. If so, please give me a thumbs up. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if the mood suits you, and I'll see you guys in the next one.